I'm stitching this adorable penguin today. Its body is made of 2 types of lace, and I've done simple slow stitching in the background. And I even bring out some seed beads to add an extra layer of texture. I start by using a template to trace the shape of my penguin. I stitch the outline, I add my lace, and then I slow stitch in the background. This was a really enjoyable project, and it stitches up fairly quickly. So come and stitch along. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. I have a square that is just over 3 inches all the way around, and I've taken some blue fabric and I've folded it to the back and I've stitched it down. So I'm starting here with some nice clean edges on this very small square. I found this piece of fabric. This is a piece of fabric from my Spoonflower shop, and I'll put a link in the description if you want to have a look at it. It's a pixelated pattern. It has these really crisp, cool turquoise colors, and then lots of nice pink and purple fuchsia colors mixed in with it. And I like the way that this small snippet looks at the bottom of this piece. Now I'm going to bring in my penguin template. And this is part of a larger set, and I'll put links in the description so you can have a look at this set. Along with the penguin, it includes a butterfly, some other birds, a rooster, and a fish. And it's also available as a PDF instant download. So I wanted to bring this penguin out today, and it just fits on this small square. So I've taken my friction erasable pen, and I've traced this penguin. I've placed him just on the left side instead of putting him right in the center, and he's sort of looking off to the right. I thought that looked really cute there. So now I'm going to stitch the outline of this penguin, and I'm going to use black, and I'm using 2 strands of embroidery floss. I started here over on the right of his belly using the running stitch, and I decided that I wanted it to be a more solid line, so I've switched to the back stitch. So I'm doing that all the way around, and when I get back to where I started, I can fill in those gaps where I started with the running stitch. So now I've worked my way back to where I started, and so I'm going to take some stitches right in between those initial ones that I'd made, filling in those gaps. So this outline is going to be one solid line of stitching. So it's really easy to change your mind as you go along and just come back and fill that in. If you're stitching in a really small area, like I am here around the feet of this bird, you can take really small stitches. So your stitches don't have to be the same size all the way around your piece. And it makes it a lot easier to fill in those small areas where you might have claws or toes, to take those really small stitches. So there's the outline of my penguin, and I'm going to come in with my small iron, and I'm going to use the heat of that iron to erase any lines that are left. Once that's cooled, I can come back in again with my heat erasable pen, and I've drawn the area that I want to be the belly of this penguin. I've drawn a little eye and the place where I want the beak to be, and I'm liking the way that that looks. So now I want to decide what to do with the belly of this penguin. I want it to be white or a light color, so I could very well come in with white floss and fill that area in. But I took a look at my stash of trims and I found this lace. And I think that one scallop of this lace might be the right size to fit right on the belly of this penguin. And it looks like when I put it down, yeah, it seems like it's going to work really well. So I just need to cut out a piece. I'm going to preserve that scallop on the bottom and try and shape the upper part to fit that top area. And so here's a small piece that I've cut, and I'm going to trim it down and make it fit right in that spot. So that's looking like the right width. Now I just need to trim down the top area and do a little bit of shaping so that fits in there nicely. I'm going to bring out my pen, kind of mark where I had initially put that belly area, draw some lines to help me cut the right shape out. So that looks like it's going to be the right shape. I'll cut it out, and there we have it. That's looking really cute. So now I'm just going to stitch that on. I'm going to use a matching color of thread. I'm going to use 2 strands, and I'm going to stitch all the way around. Hold that in place. I'm taking straight stitches to attach that, move my way all the way around. So there's my piece of lace and that scallop on the bottom. That's looking really cute. And I think the next thing that would be nice to do is to outline that area in black. So I've begun to outline this belly in black, and as I was doing that, I came up with an idea about how to add black to this penguin. I've brought out this lace, and since I already have lace in the belly, I think this might be a really nice way to add an interesting texture while I add black to the background. If I just use small snippets and stitch them down using regular black sewing thread, I think it's going to work out to be an excellent way to add texture and color. So I just need to be strategic about where I place the lace. You can even see here when I take one of these scallops how cute it looks right here on the belly of the penguin. So I'm going to start adding this and see what I think. So I stitched a piece of lace onto the head of the penguin, and then I came in and I trimmed away the excess. And I'm going to show you how I did that in a moment. First, I want to show how I'm going to choose the piece that I use. So I have a piece that I've cut here. I'm just moving it around until I like the way that it looks. So when I turn it this way, it doesn't look as good as when I'm following the curve of both the arm and the scallop of that lace. So I'm going to stitch that in place. So I stitch around the edges, following those lines that I've traced, and then I come in with my scissors and I'm going to trim away the excess as closely as I can without cutting into those stitches that I've made. So there's my first cut. I can refine that and cut away a bit more. And then I'm going to come in and cut away between the side and where that wing is. It's not too difficult to do if you take it slow and you have a small pair of scissors, like these embroidery scissors I'm using here. So there's that one side of the bird complete. I'm going to trim away some more, and I'm going to continue working my way around all these areas that I want to be black. So here I've added all of this black lace in the background, and I did pull out one little piece to add right in the center. I like the way that that looks. It almost looks like a little heart. So now I just have to stitch the feet and the beak, and for that I'm going to bring out some light orange. So here's the color of floss that I've chosen, and I've begun stitching in the beak. I've done one foot, and now I just have a little bit more stitching to do to complete the other foot. This is a nice contrast to the rest of what's going on with the bird. So now my stitching on the bird is complete. I'm very happy with the way that it looks. Those 2 different types of lace have added so much texture. So now I want to add some slow stitching lines in the background, and I'm going to stitch simple lines. I'm going to use white, and I'm going to go back and forth and in and out. So I've started here over on the right. I've gone up to about the shoulder of the penguin, and I've switched my direction, and I'm going to continue stitching, adding it along the bottom and the other side. This is adding a lot of nice texture. It's not a high contrast color, but it's still showing up. So here's all my stitching complete, and now that I look at the stitching that I've done, I want to add something around the edges. So I'm going to use black floss, 2 strands, and I'm going to use the blanket stitch. So the way I do that is I come in, you can really start anywhere as long as it's not on a corner, coming in from behind, and I'm bringing my needle up right on the edge. Then I'm holding the thread in my left hand, and I'm deciding how long I want that stitch to be, taking a stitch and pulling it through that thread that I'm holding to the left, and it makes a loop. And then I'm moving along a short distance and taking another stitch. I'm just using my eye to judge how far apart I want to take these stitches. I have room to come around again and fill in the stitches more if I want to after I've done one round of stitching. So I'm continuing along here, You can, of course, mark where you want your stitches to be so you don't come too far in on your piece, or even place your stitches too close together or unevenly spaced. You can be as precise as you like. I like to just wing it. So I'm going to continue to move along all 4 sides. So I'm coming back almost to where I started, and I wanted to show how I go around the corner. I take my last stitch, and I can kind of guide where that lands with my fingers, and then I turn and I take my first stitch on the other side. I kind of guide where that stitch is going to land as well. And then I'm set up to continue right along in the next line. So I only have a few stitches to take here until I'm back where I started, and then I'm going to take my needle and connect the thread to that first stitch. Now at this point, I could go to the back and tie off, and I could be done. I can take a look at it and decide if I like that stitching and I'm finished, or if I want to go around one more time. And there's no wrong choice here. It's really up to you. So I'm looking at this and thinking that I want to do one more round. I want that black to be more prominent and the stitches closer together. Since I've already linked up with that first stitch, I can just continue, and I'm going to take a stitch in between every stitch that I've already taken and work my way around in the same way. So now I've worked my way all the way around, and I've completed that border. I'm really happy with the way that that's looking. Only other thing I want to do is add an eye. I think I'm going to take a black bead and stitch it right where the eye of the bird will be. Adding that one bead for the eye has made a big difference. It's added a character and brought that penguin to life. It's given me an idea about adding more beads. I have some small seed beads, so these are smaller than the bead I used for the eye. And I want to add them in white. So this is going to add a really subtle effect. They're not going to contrast much. And when I pour some out, you can see how small they are. You almost can't see them. I think I want to sprinkle these beads around the top area to add one more element of texture. You could also do French knots here, and that would give a similar effect. I'm going to use regular sewing thread in white, and I'm going to use a thinner needle. Now this is a beading needle. You don't have to have a beading needle, but you do have to have a needle that's thin enough for your bead to go all the way through and past the end. So when I slip this seed bead on, I see that it fits, and it's going to work for my purposes here. So now I'm going to add these beads in sort of a random pattern in the upper area. So now I've stitched them on. And the white is the same color as the floss that I've used. It's added that extra something special that I wanted. Now if I pick it up and move it around, you can see that 3D texture that it's given. And again, if you don't have beads, French knots would work equally as well here. So it almost looks like it's snowing behind this penguin. So now I'm calling this done, and all I have to do is add a backing. So I've taken a square of black felt and I've cut it slightly smaller on all sides, just a millimeter or two smaller than the size of my piece. There's one extra step that I like to take here that's optional, and what I do is I clip off the corners of my felt. So I take my scissors and I take the smallest little snip on all 4 corners, and what that does is it makes it easier to stitch this piece on and to not have that backing show at the front. So when I place it on the back, you can see that it fits just a little bit better than it did before. So now I'm going to take 2 strands of the same black embroidery floss that I used on the edges, and I'm going to stitch that on. Just using a simple stitch to attach it and checking as I stitch to make sure that it's not coming through to the front. So here I've stitched that on. It's covered up all my stitching on the back. It's added some puffiness to the piece, made it a little bit thicker, and now this penguin is complete. This was such a fun project. Adding that lace and the body of the penguin, it wasn't hard to do. and I love the effect that it gives. I hope this inspires you to grab some lace and see what you can do with it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, happy stitching.